Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online Let's Talk video with me, Sherman. Today guys, we're going to be talking about the meta, but before we do, I want to give a few shoutouts to a few other YouTubers. One is Life Balance Gaming. He does a lot of YouTube videos on Elder Scrolls. He talks, I think he's on PS4 or Xbox, I think PS4. But he talks a lot about the same kind of similar stuff I do. When it comes to build options and things like that. So go check him out. You guys can check the link in the description below to find his channel. He's got a lot of really good information if you're a non-meta type player. If you're a meta player, I would suggest going and checking out Outcast or Asian God. Both of them very good on the meta, and they know a lot about it, especially how it works and the dynamics of it. But what I want to talk about when it comes to the meta, I don't want to talk about it in a derogatory or a bad way, because it's not a bad thing. It's actually a really good thing that we have a meta. The problem is that we only have one option in the meta. So what I mean by that is, and I say one option, it's not really one option. I mean, you have a lot of options in the meta, but the options are very limited. They're very singular, if you will. And that is what creates a lot of problems in MMOs, is if you look at the meta of like the Division right now, it's high DPS for what they call the Dark Zone, which is one of the in-game experience. So everyone builds for super high DPS, really low, like somewhat decent survivability, but not great, and they use a lot of the same tools. Like everyone uses the same tools. But you have all these other tools in the game, but they're pretty much useless in that way. Then when you look at their in-game incursions or their other in-game stuff, the options become more vibrant, a lot more. But you're still limited because you've got to play to a certain degree with what's available, the tools that are given to you. The same thing can be said about Guild Wars 2's meta, where you have like everyone running a certain gear type, everyone plays a certain way, yada yada yada. A meta is just a group combination. In games like World of Warcraft, the meta could be, at one time, could be 2 rogues, 2 thieves, or is it rogues? Rogues. 2 rangers, 2 sorcerers, 2 warlocks, 2 priests, and 2 warriors, or 2 paladins. That might be the meta at the time because of the class combination, the skill combination, the build combination, whatever you want to call it, working together. A meta is just a combination of builds that work together in such a way they get the best results. And like I said, in like Destiny right now, there's a meta for what people use at the end game. They use specific classes with specific weapons, not specific gear necessarily, but they try to run specific gear, and with certain perks on them that give you the greatest benefit. And they can just melt through stuff. Why do people like jump to this thing when there's so many other options still available? It's because, no offense to devs, but devs have a hard time balancing a game that has so many options. Especially when you look at Elder Scrolls. If you're telling me that out of 300 plus gear sets, only 6 are viable for a tank, well actually 12 are viable for a tank, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with your game. Because why offer 300 gear sets that can all be powered, all be taken to the same quality and power level, but only a handful work? It's because of an established meta. Now, is there tools that the devs can give the rest of the community that could help? Yeah, they could offer us new gear sets that give us the same features as other gear sets. Like, why don't we have another version of Alkosh? Why is there only one version or one set that does that debuff that Alkosh does? Why most tanks run it? Why don't we have another set that does that? Why don't we have more sets like Night Mother's Gaze? Or a Magicka version of it? Why don't we have more options for Major Breach and Major Fracture? Why don't we have more options for Minor Breach and Minor Fracture? Why don't we have more options for everything? The problem is because it takes time to develop all that. And in order for them to add a whole bunch of stuff like that, they would have to redesign the whole game. And if they're going to redesign the whole game, it'd be better just to make a new game. When somebody asked me recently what it was like to alpha test the Division 2, the only things I could tell them was the Division 2 is the Division 1 done right. That's it. That's all I can say. Because that's what they did. Destiny 1, the difference between Destiny 1 and Destiny 2, nothing. Destiny 1 and Destiny 2 were pretty much the same game. And even now, it's even more to what the original was than it was before. So you're pretty much playing Destiny 1 all over again. With new powers, new abilities, woo. But they didn't do anything new to make it better. When you look at games like EverQuest 1 and EverQuest 2, the difference between EverQuest 1 and EverQuest 2 was big. There was a huge difference between the two games when they first came out. Now, they're very similar in the way they play. Not very good choice. World of Warcraft. Every time they come out with a new expansion, they try to add new ways to play the game, but it just creates a new meta. And just like with this game, every new update, they try to put things in that they think will disrupt the meta or create a new option for the meta, but it doesn't change anything. And that's because the meta still works. Because there's nothing there to change it. The only way to change the meta is to change the way it works. And you can't do that. Because if you do that, then they're just going to find a new meta and just play off that. The thing you have to understand about ESO is ESO gives you all the tools necessary to mimic what the meta does, but in different ways. And when Asian God made his video where he was talking about how to get into the end game, he talked about this. He talked about that there is options out there that you can play that aren't meta. And you can find like-minded people to play with. It's not easy. It's not easy to even find meta groups that will allow you to play with them, because a lot of meta groups play on certain schedules and at certain times. And the problem with most metas is they become very singular. So it leaves a lot of people without anything to do, except for play the content that's available to them, and that gets boring. A lot of the times, like when you're not part of the meta, you're stuck playing the stuff you don't want to play, or you've already done it so much that you want to do something else, and you want to do these trials, you want to do the harder, difficult content, but nobody's allowing you because nobody's willing to work together to create a new group dynamic, because there's already an established group dynamic. And this is a problem. How do you create a dynamic in a game that allows for a lot of different dynamics, but only one is showing any true value? And you have to create it. And nobody's done that. And why hasn't nobody done that? Because it takes time. It takes a lot of time. It took them a year to establish the meta in this game. 1 year. And once they established the meta for the trials, it stuck. And it stayed. And it's been in that way ever since. So we are in an ever-continuous loop of meta stuff. And every game has a meta. You look at Rift, it has a meta. You look at World of Warcraft, has a meta. Call of Duty, Black Ops 3 or 4, whatever, the new one, has a meta. Every game has a meta. And that's because people find what I call the path of least resistance. They find what works best and they just run with it. And any time that they can do anything to improve that, they will. They won't do anything to try and create new ways to play or to offer new ways to play. They will stick to their guns of what they know works best. And right now, that's what we're seeing in ESO. We've been seeing this for a long time, but nobody's willing to talk about it and discuss it. And that's because, how do you explain to people that there is other options? Like, how do you show them? Unless you can build it and show them proof that it works, they won't believe it. So, like, when I tell people that this build works as a tank, they're like, oh, yeah, right, blah, blah. And I've shown it works. But you know what? Nobody believes it. Still, to this day, they will still shoot it down. They'll be like, it doesn't work because it doesn't do this, 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 and this. Because it doesn't do what the meta does, it doesn't work. And that's that's a continuous problem that you'll find in any game you play. When I play the Division and I play my tank versus other tanks, I get a lot of ridicule for it because I'm not following what the meta does. Well, why am I not following what the meta does? Because I don't want to play what somebody else is already playing. I want to play something different. I want to play something that's not being played that much. I want to be different because I'm a different person in who I am. And you can call it being a special snowflake. But even meta people are special snowflakes because they request you to play that way, and if you don't follow their rules, they kick you from groups. They belittle you. They talk smack against you. They throw the meta in your face. And this will happen no matter what you do. The best thing to do, in my opinion, is ignore them. That's what I do. I ignore people who try to tell me how to make my builds better because they're not meta. I'm like, so what? I don't care. It's not for you to decide what's best. It's for me to decide what I wanted to, contribute to the community. If my ideas don't fit within your standards, don't waste your time at my channel. Go to the channels where you want to hang out with like-minded people. Go hang out with Outcasts. Go hang out with Asian God. Those are the guys who focus on the meta. And I understand why they don't focus on anything else. You try creating a completely different group dynamic and making it work. It's not easy. It's not something that you can do in a day. You have to practice. You have to learn how to play that way. And if you're not willing to learn to play something different, it'll never work. And that's where a lot of the issues come into games like this, Guild Wars 2, is because they're so open-ended in how you can play that there's a lot of variety and a lot of options. But because of the meta and the meta crowd, and I'm not blaming every meta person, because there are some cool meta people I have met who are willing to say, okay, well, we don't have this in our group and I'd really like it. Is there a way that you could equip a sword and shield? Oh, you don't have one? Well, here, I'll just equip this skill so we have this ability to do this, just to help the group. When you're willing to work with people in that way, you're much better off than just kicking somebody from the group because they don't have something you want them to have, or they don't have the tools necessary. The tools are there. It's just, you got to find a way to use them. Like when I was with a group and this guy goes, oh, well, we don't have major fracture because you don't have it on your tank because you're playing an ice tank. He goes, but that's okay because I run this character with Night Mother's Gaze outside of this. I'll just equip it so we get it in here. And it blew his mind because he thought Night Mother's Gaze only applied to one enemy at a time. And I was like, no, it applies to all targets you crit. So when we were going through trash, he noticed the trash was just melting like crazy. He goes, I've never killed trash so fast. And I was like, you're using Night Mother's Gaze. He's like, I think I'm going to be using this more often. So he actually switched to using Night Mother's Reliquin and Stormfist for his build because he found it worked. He saw that it worked better. Even though he lost some crit, he was a Nightblade, so it didn't really hurt his crit that much. He lost some crit, but like he said, he made up the difference with being a Nightblade and being a Khajiit. So he did that, and he loves it. He plays it that way all the time now. And he is from the guild that is all Khajiits and stuff. And they run a whole meta guild. Like, their whole guild is meta, but they're all Khajiits. It's weird. Their healers run meta setups. Their tanks run meta. It's funny to watch. Like, if you ever get in group with them, it's really cool. But at the same time, it's really creepy, too, because you're like, all these people are Khajiits, and we're just owning this dungeon or this trial or whatever. And they don't play to be meta. They play what the race they like. I'll just put it that way. I don't remember the name of their guild, but I want to say it's like Furry One, or I don't remember, because I don't play with them that often. In fact, I haven't seen him on in like 2 months because, like he said, he was getting to the point in the game where there was nothing that they hadn't done. and they were waiting for the next major chapter because they want a new trial. They played Black Rose Prison when it came out and beat it in like the first day, and they were like, okay. They didn't really like it. They liked some of the sets that dropped in there and some of the gear, but they played the meta, so there was nothing in there worthwhile. And they got the skin, they got everything they needed, and they were done. They haven't been back since. But yeah, you know, it's funny because when you hear about stuff like this, you're like, what? Like they're not playing right now because there's nothing for them to do. And that's exactly it. There's nothing for them to gain. They've gained everything. They've got all the skins, they've got all the stuff they want, all the achievements from the hardest difficulty content because they played their races with the meta. And they didn't care. They just wanted to complete the stuff. And I understand why people are the way they are about certain things. Like, I understand why so many people are adamant about the meta. The meta's established. It works. It does its job. But at the same time, it doesn't offer a lot of variety. It doesn't offer a lot of options for people to play. I mean, a lot more of it's opened up because they have the Discords now, and you can go on the Discords and you can see that there's people that discuss Sork tanking, but they're using Sork. They're using the same build that the DK uses, just in a Sork, or in a Nightblade, or in a Warden, and it's like they're using the same gear, pretty much the same skills, and it's like this isn't different, guys. This is just a different. This is like playing the same class with a different skin. So it's you're just pretty much playing the same thing, and it's like that's not what people want. People want completely different things. People want ice staff tanking. People want two-handed tanking. People want dual wield tanking. People want to see tanks that can be of a variety of different options. Why do they want that? Because the game allows it, and people want to play it. But why do people want to play it? Because it's an option. It's one option that they like. And that's what a lot of the meta crowd forgets is, and it's not that they forget, they just don't understand. They don't see the point of playing anything else when this works so well. Like, why do you want to be a dual wield tank? Because it's fun. It's something I enjoy. And that's the thing, is like certain people, they enjoy that playstyle. But because of the problems with the way the game works, like, and it really is, it comes down to learning mechanics. If you can learn the mechanics with any build, you can play it. Like, you can play it through that content. It's kind of like me in a two-handed tank. When people used to say, oh, you can't do it because their shields suck and da-da-da, they actually fixed that. They fixed it this update in Murkmire. And now shields are actually good, and they work really good on a two-handed tank because I can build up all this stuff, but I still suck because I'm not doing the meta. I'm not wearing Ebon Alkosh. I'm not playing to that standard. I'm not playing the Argonian, you know, or I'm not playing this, or I'm not doing that. I'm not using these sets. And that's what it comes down to. How do we make a group that can mimic what the meta does, but also is something people want to play? Well, you have to play it. You have to test it. And with anything, you have to learn how to play it. And that's why a lot of people complain about the ice staff when it comes to tanking. They're like, oh, this thing sucks because the taunt is too slow. This is this. There's no major breach. There's no major fracture. And it's like, well, then you have to compromise with the rest of your group. You have to complement that person for their build with other builds. This is how a team works. It's not about it's not about me, it's not about, well, we say this, it's about working together as a group. The meta works together because it was built to work together. How do you build it to allow an ice staff tank? Well, you have to compromise. You know, one of your DPS is going to have to run Night Mother's Gaze, so you can have major fracture. One of your, your ice tank is going to have to learn to tank with an ice staff. It's the same as learning to tank with a sword and board. It's no different. You got to learn how to play the build. And if you don't know how, if you're not willing to learn, then you're not willing to learn. There's nothing I can do about that. But there are people who want to play that way. Just like there's people like me who want to play a two-handed tank. Or those that want to play a healer who is a stamina healer. The only option we have for that is a warding. And yeah, it doesn't bring the same tools with it. It doesn't have shards. It doesn't have this. It doesn't have orbs. But it doesn't mean somebody else in the group can't bring that same tool to the table. See, that's what working as a team is. It's working to compromise, to complement each other. That's what a meta is. It's builds that complement each other. Why does the DK tank running Ubin Alkosh work so well in a group? It's because of all the things it can do. Because it offers a lot of group support, utility, all this other stuff. Well, can't you do that with other group dynamics? Yeah, you can. But nobody's willing to put it together and show the rest of the community it can be done. I've tried, but every time I've tried, I've failed because everyone just follows into the meta suit or they quit the game because they get tired of testing and trying new things when there's already something that's established that works. And you have to remember, this game's going on 5 years. Once this game breaks the 5-year mark, it's halfway through its lifespan most of the time. And now there are games out there that have lasted 20 years and stuff. Not gonna lie, EverQuest is one of them, World of Warcraft is one of them. But that's the thing, is why have those games that have been established for so long, why are they lasting? Well, it's because a lot of people learned a long time ago that just because there's a meta doesn't mean nothing else works. It's just the meta might show these results for the faster clears and the faster runs, but it doesn't mean that you can still not complete with other stuff. Once people figured that out, people didn't care. And people continue to play the game because they like it. People ask me all the time, why do you continue to play Elder Scrolls if you don't like the meta? I still like the game, and I still like the fact that I can play how I want. And I do have like-minded friends who play with me from time to time. A lot of them have left the game. Not because there's nothing to do or there's nothing for them to do. It's they got bored of the game and they got tired of getting kicked from pugs and dealing with the stress of people treating them, you know, just treating them wrong because they didn't want to follow suit with the meta. And a lot of times that's what happens. People get tired of being told what they can and can't do in a game that clearly allows it. And that can be a problem for anybody. I mean, think about the stress levels that you would get dealing with that on a constant basis. You're trying to get into a group to do a trial and they're like, oh no, you're not running the meta, kick. Oh no, you're not running the meta, kick. What do you think is going to happen? Eventually they're just going to get so tired of being kicked, they're just going to quit the game. And if that's what everyone wants, think about this. Imagine if more than half the population of the game quit all of a sudden. Would this game stay afloat? No, they need to bring in new players. What if they bring in new players? Are those people going to stick around knowing that when they get to the end, they're stuck playing these very linear end-game, or not linear, very, very singular end-game? Will they stick around? No, they'll leave. What happens if you offer more variety to the player base, more options to the player base? Are they going to stick around? More likely to stick around then, because now they have more options in what they can and can't play. See, what needs to happen is not, we don't need to create another meta. What we need to do is offer more variety for people to play. And that's where people like myself and Outcast and Asian God and all that, where we come in and we show the community that, hey, there is other options. But we stick to the guns of what we play. Like, they stick to the meta. That's what they do. And they show the community why it's best to be played. But then there's people like me who say, hey, don't worry about it, guys. If you don't have that stuff, it's fine. You can use other things. You can compensate. You can work together as a team to make up the difference. Yeah, it's not as good, it's not as effective, but you can still get the content done. Does a tank have to use Sword and Shield? No. Not at all. Does a healer have to use elemental weakness? No, because DPS could run it if needed. What if a healer doesn't have the destruction staff unlocked, so they don't have that skill, and you want to run this trial, but they have everything, they have a bunch of other tools that could be of advantage. Like, you have to understand, that's what being a team is. It's working together to compromise to create something. If you're not willing to work together to create a dynamic group, then you shouldn't be playing MMOs. You should be playing single-player games, no offense. But if you're willing to work together as a team and you find that the meta works best for you, play the meta. If it doesn't, and it creates a lot of disposition in your group, then find what works best for your group and build around it. And build a structured, organized group around it. If you have somebody who likes to play a heavy armor, two-handed warrior type person, but also wants to be a tank, help them, teach them, make them learn how to play a tank that way, and then compromise with the rest of your group to compensate what you don't have. Okay, we don't have Major Fracture because our tank doesn't use Sword and Shield. Okay, somebody needs to run Night Mother's Gaze. You can still run Reliquin with it, and you can run this, and this will be a good option. You won't be as good as you would if you were running Advancing Yodokai, but we can still get the content done. And you're going to be able to apply Major Fracture to more targets. So this is going to be better for you. Okay, well, what does the tank wear? Well, what is the tank wearing? Okay, well, what if we gave you this set, we gave you the Nightmare set, and we gave you Plague Doctor. So this way you have a high health pool with this. Oh, you're a Nord. Well, what if you ran Eben, 5 pieces of Eben with 5 pieces of Nightmare, and you ran a two-handed sword and a bow, or two-handed sword, whatever fits best, and then this. And they find what works best as a group. That's what a meta is it's just a group dynamic. You have to find your own meta sometimes. And sometimes that meta is completely different than the meta that's established, but it still works. It still does its job. It still does the things you need it to do. And is it established? No. Does it have to be? No. Do you want it to be? Okay, you do? Then share it with the community. Show them what you're playing. Show them your group dynamic. And let them learn. People might like that and say, wow, that really works for them. I like it. We like it. Let's do it. They've got an ice tank, they've got a two-handed tank, and they've got a really cool DPS setup. They got one guy in their DPS group who's running Powerful Assault and Reliquin with this set because they want the Major Berserk all the time. And they don't pull super DPS, but they get all these other benefits because of it, and they're helping their group out. That's the thing that you have to understand, is it's not just about how things work, it's about how things can work. And not what's best all the time. Sometimes it's not always best to play the best. Sometimes it's better to play other things, to learn how to play the game in a new light, because sometimes that opens the door to funner experiences. And that's why I stick with ESO. And that's why I continue to let people talk to me and treat me, the way they do about the meta, because it doesn't matter to me what you play. As long as you're having fun playing the game, that's all that matters. And if you enjoy playing that Sork that runs Iceheart and Julianus with Queen's Elegance, and that's the type of setup you want to run on your Magicka healer, I'm fine with that. Just make sure your group is too. And if your group wants Elorum in the group, and you're not willing to trade out your stuff because you like the way your build works, then you know what you can do? You can say, hey, I'll run Olorum instead of Elegance when we do trials. When we're doing dungeons, I'll run this. But if you guys want me to run Olorum all the time, then we got to compensate. We need to make, there needs to be a trade-off. You have to work together. Because if you're not willing to work together, then there's no reason to be playing the game. Now, for all of my solo fans out there, yes, I know what you're all thinking. Ew, he's talking about group stuff. Don't worry, I got some solo stuff coming for you guys. It's just going to be after the new year, guys, before I have any new content really coming out. I will be releasing a video on Monday next week, and then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I just wanted to, like I said, take some time to spend some time with the family, enjoy the holidays, that kind of stuff, but I will be having more videos come out. I just wanted some personal time, so. But yeah, I haven't gone anywhere. I haven't quit the game. I still play ESO on a regular basis. I just don't log in as much as I'd like. I spend too much time on PTS, that's for sure. I think the devs need to shut it down every once in a while. Kicking to make me come play the live servers. But yeah, Understand this, guys. The meta isn't the only way. It is one way that works best for a lot of people. But those people that it works best for, you need to understand that there's people out there that are willing to play the game and are willing to compromise if you are. If you're not willing to compromise with them, you're going to piss them off and you're going to set them into a frenzy. And this is going to cause flack and all kinds of stuff on a lot of us in the community. And it's not good. It's not good when you have a lot of the people in the community getting mad because of things like builds and YouTubers and all this kind of stuff and blaming the meta directly. There should never be any blame on the meta, and there should be never any blame on the people who create non-meta stuff. You should be thankful that people are willing to work with the rest of the community on giving them stuff to play that is still just as good as what you are, just might not be to that dynamic. But that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, you know what to do. You can hit that like button. If you guys want to see more builds or more videos by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy might see you in game. Bye.